I'm here with an NFL uniform tier list. I'm going to be ranking every team's uniforms based on how good I think they look. That's pretty much all there is to it, so let's not waste any more time and get started. Up first we have the Cardinals, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can see, they have just 3 jerseys. The red, the white, and the black. And overall, I think these jerseys are a little bland, but you could certainly do a lot worse. I think the black looks nice, and the white is pretty clean, albeit a bit bland. But the red just doesn't look good to me. There's uniforms that are bland, and then there's uniforms that actually have nothing going on, and that's the case here. Other than the ginormous Arizona spelled out at the top of the uniform. It looks like a football jersey you'd see in a cartoon. These uniforms aren't bad in my opinion, but they're not really that good either. I think C tier is the perfect spot. And it's much of the same for the Falcons uniforms, they're also pretty bland. In fact, I was having a hard time picturing what they even looked like without looking it up, which I think says it all. They're definitely not bad looking, but they're not that great either. Although I will say I really like their throwbacks. But overall, I think they're just a hair better than the Cardinals. Now for the Ravens, and their uniforms are pretty simple, but not in the same way the Cardinals and Falcons are. I think the Ravens uniforms look really good, and the purple and black go very well together. There's also a lot of funky variations, like sometimes they have gold letters or even purple helmets. But other than these diarrhea brown pants that I didn't even know existed before researching for this video, I couldn't find any Ravens uniform combinations that didn't look good. I think they're a strong A tier. There's not much to say for the Bills, their uniforms are also pretty simple, but they're clean. I'm not the biggest fan of the red jerseys, but other than that I'd say their uniforms look pretty good, and I'm gonna give them B tier. Now for the Panthers, and contrary to their play on the field, I think their uniforms look really nice. They're a lot like the Ravens, but with a cool shade of blue instead of purple. I think the black and blue looks nice, especially with the silver helmets, and then the blue jerseys with the black helmet also looks pretty good. I'm gonna put the Panthers up in A tier as well. Now the Bears are an interesting case because I think their regular home and away jerseys are pretty solid, but I am not a fan of the all orange or the throwback jerseys. I think I would give the Bears regular jerseys a low B tier, and I'd give their other 2 jerseys a D tier. And overall I think that balances out to about a C. Now for the Bengals, and I think their uniforms look really good. I love how they did the stripes on their uniforms, it's eye-catching but not too much. And I especially think the black jersey with orange pants looks phenomenal. I'd give the Bengals a high A tier. Next up is the Browns, and they're a lot like the Bills in the sense that there's not a lot going on with their uniforms, but they're just really clean. They're not too bland, they just look nice. And I'm especially a big fan of the all brown with the orange numbers. I'll put the Browns uniforms just a tad above the Bills in B tier. Next up is the Cowboys, and they've got quite a few unique uniform variations. They got the normal white with the light blue pants, the all white with a darker blue, their navy blue jerseys, and their throwbacks. They also have a red stripe on their helmets sometimes, for what that's worth. Overall, the Cowboys uniforms are pretty nice looking. None of them really stand above the rest, they're all just solid. I think that warrants the top of B tier. Next up is the Broncos, and I am not a fan of their new uniforms. I think they're pretty ugly. Especially considering I thought they had pretty nice uniforms before. The one saving grace for the Broncos is that their throwback jerseys look absolutely phenomenal. But on its own, that's not enough to save these jerseys from going in D tier. Next up is the Lions, and they debuted some new uniforms last season if I'm not mistaken. And much like the Bills jerseys, they went a more simple route with these ones, but simple in a good way. I don't really know what to say about them, they're just really nice looking. I like this shade of blue a lot, so that probably helps, but I also really like their black jerseys. Although the blue helmets with the black lion logo are a little hard to get used to. Overall, I'd say these jerseys get a high B tier. Next up is the Packers, and whether you like the Packers or not, I don't see how you could not like that classic green and yellow. Not to mention, I actually really like how the all green with the yellow letters looks. Now I do think the white helmets look pretty weird, I'm not a big fan of those. But that's not a big enough negative to drop them down a tier. I think the Packers jerseys are deserving of a low A tier. Now for the Texans, and I think their regular home and away jerseys look pretty nice. It's their other 2 jerseys that I really have to think about. The all red is pretty cool looking in my opinion, but something just looks off about it. Maybe it's the darker metallic sheen of the helmet that makes it not match the rest of the uniform, but it just doesn't seem right. And then their H-Town jerseys are also pretty cool looking, but at the same time, the different logo is weird. and it just seems like there's a lot of bright conflicting colors. Overall, I'd give the Texans jerseys a low B tier, but they're definitely going to take some getting used to. Next up we got the Colts, and the Colts are pretty much a textbook example of a uniform that's not bad at all, but it's just really bland. I think their jerseys are nice and clean looking, but there's just so little going on that I feel like I can't really give it any higher than C tier. Especially with their alternate jerseys that are all blue with the black helmet, I think those are really ugly. I think the Colts jerseys go at the top of C tier. Next up we got the Jags, and I think their normal uniforms are fine. They're not bad, but they're not that good. They're pretty bland, which is the story for a lot of uniforms. As for their alternate uniforms, they've got the all black with the white helmet, which I think is just weird looking. But then on the other hand, they got their throwbacks, which I think are spectacular. But I don't think that's enough to bump them up out of C tier. Now for the Chiefs, and my thoughts on them are pretty much exactly the same as the Bills. Their uniforms are simple and there's not a lot going on, but they're just really clean and nice looking. I'll put the Chiefs just a tad below the Bills in B tier just because I think the Bills' white helmets give them a more unique look. Now for the Raiders, and I think they're another team that has a very simplistic design that's done right. Not to mention they have a really nice color scheme on top of that. That iconic black and silver gets a B tier from me. Now for the Chargers, and I really like their uniforms. I like the logo across the shoulders, and pretty much all of their uniforms look good, especially the powder blue with the yellow pants. I'm not a big fan of the navy blue alternates, but they're certainly not bad. I think the Chargers uniforms belong in A tier. Now for the Rams, and one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video was just so I can absolutely dogpile on these atrocious uniforms. I mean, it would genuinely be hard to make uniforms worse than these on purpose. They got that stupid looking line cutting through the horn for some reason. That ugly reflective material with a gradient color for the numbers on the jerseys. And don't even get me started on this dirty laundry looking ass shade of white they chose for their alternate jerseys for some reason. I mean, these guys are already hateable enough without looking like such an eyesore every Sunday. It brings me great joy to say that the Rams are an easy F tier. And that's made even worse by the fact that they had some of the nicer looking jerseys in the league before they made this change a few years back. Now for the Dolphins, and I like their jerseys. Their regular aqua blue and white jerseys aren't anything special, but they look pretty nice in my opinion. And I also like the color scheme they've got going on with the little bits of orange. And although they aren't too different from their regular jerseys, their throwbacks look really nice. I think I'll put the Dolphins at the lower end of B tier. Now for the Vikings, and I'm a big fan of their uniforms. I think the purple and yellow go really well together. Not to mention the jerseys themselves are just really clean. I also like the horns they have on their helmets, and I think their throwback jerseys look amazing. They also have these new all-white jerseys which look okay, although if I'm not wrong, those replaced the all-purple jerseys with the yellow numbers, which were some of my favorite jerseys in the league. The Vikings jerseys might have been S tier if they didn't remove those ones, but they're still really good. I think they're deserving of A tier. And while we're here, I think I'm gonna go ahead and move the Bengals up to S. Now for the Patriots, and stop me if you've heard this before, but I think the Patriots have a really simple design that looks good. And they also have a really nice throwback jersey. I feel like a broken record at this point. I'm gonna drop the Patriots in B tier. Next up we got the Saints, and I'm just gonna save some time. They're exactly the same as the Raiders, but with gold instead of silver. They do have some alternates with black helmets, but I don't really think those look any better or worse than their normal jerseys. Now for the Giants, and they're very mediocre. And of course you can't discuss the Giants uniforms without bringing up that absolutely hideous alternate. They do have another throwback jersey, but although it is slightly better in my opinion, it's not really different enough from their regular jerseys to help them out much. I think they belong in C tier below the Jags and the Colts. Now for the Jets, and I really like their uniforms. If I'm not mistaken, they had these as throwbacks in 2023, and they just decided to make that their normal jersey because everyone loved them so much. And I think that was the right call. There's not a lot going on with these, but they're just really simple and clean. And I'm also a fan of the all black. I think these go near the top of B tier. Now for the Eagles, and they've got some really nice uniforms. Their regular green home jerseys are nice, their away jerseys look nice. I love the all black, and of course, who couldn't like the Kelly green throwbacks? There's not a whole lot to say here, the Eagles jerseys just look really good all around. I'll put them near the top of A tier. Next up we got the Steelers, and I don't even know what it is about the Steelers jerseys, but they're the perfect example of a jersey that doesn't have much going on, and yet it's S tier anyways. The black jersey with yellow pants is iconic, and I'm also a big fan of the all black with yellow numbers. You might be noticing a trend here. Next up we got the 49ers. There's not much to go over. They got their normal red and white and their classic red and white. Personally, I think the classic red and white are okay, but I'm not the biggest fan. But pretty much all their jerseys look nice, and the gold pants really give them a unique look. I think the 49ers just sneaked their way into A tier. Now for my Seahawks, and I'm glad to be a fan of a team with such amazing jerseys. Lime green is quite the interesting color for a sports jersey, but the Seahawks are able to handle it subtly enough for it to look just right. Most of the time. That navy on navy is iconic, and with the addition of the throwback jerseys, the Seahawks look even better. The only gripe you could have with the Seahawks jerseys is that highlighter green alternate, which is fair, but in my opinion the green jersey with blue pants actually doesn't look that bad. The green on green is too much, but for an alternate I think just the green jersey is good enough. I don't care if anyone says I'm biased, I'm putting the Seahawks in S tier. Now for the Buccaneers, and they're a lot like the Jets in the sense that they kind of reverted back to an older uniform design, or at least something similar to it, and it was definitely the right call because these uniforms look great. I think their home and away jerseys look amazing, and the throwback creamsicle jerseys are better for nostalgia reasons than anything else. But hey, they're cool and I like them. I might be wrong on this, but it seems like the dull gray was not used at all in 2024. But I think those would be their worst looking uniforms anyways. I'm gonna put the Bucs in the middle of A tier. Now for the Titans. And the Titans are tough because I like their color scheme with the 2 shades of blue mixed with some gray. And their Oilers throwback jerseys look really good. But I feel like the patterns themselves on their normal jerseys aren't that enticing, and the numbers kinda look ugly. I think those are smaller nitpicks though, and overall I'd give the Titans a low B tier. And finally we got the Commanders, and I'm not a big fan of their jerseys. The all black looks okay, but I just think these uniforms are pretty ugly. I think they're just a tad above the Broncos in D tier. And there's my completed uniform tier list. If I missed anything or got something wrong, let me know, and give me your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to like and subscribe.